There is a very specific kind of silence that follows a generous offer. It's the silence that happens in the seconds after a friend says, "Let me handle this for you." Or a partner suggests, "Why don't you go rest while I take care of the chores?" For most, this might be a moment of relief, a small breath of fresh air in a crowded day. But for you, it feels like the air has suddenly vanished from the room. Your heart might quicken, your stomach might tighten into a familiar, painful knot, and your mind immediately begins to construct 1,000 reasons why you should refuse. You find yourself saying, "I'm fine," before you've even processed what was offered. It's a reflex, a defensive shield held up against the perceived threat of kindness. And if you do accept, perhaps because you're too exhausted to fight or the person is too insistent, the relief you should feel is replaced by a heavy, suffocating blanket of guilt. It's a guilt that whispers you are a burden, that you are taking up too much space, and that, eventually, the bill for this kindness will come due, and the price will be more than you can afford to pay. To understand why a simple act of help feels like a psychological debt, we have to look past the surface of your adult life and into the very architecture of your childhood. We have to look at the silent contracts you signed when you were too young to understand what you were agreeing to. In a healthy developmental environment, a child learns that their needs are valid simply because they exist. When a baby cries because they are hungry or cold, and a caregiver responds with warmth and consistency, the child internalizes a fundamental truth. The world is safe, my needs are important, and receiving help is a natural part of being loved. This is the foundation of secure attachment. In this space, help is not a currency, it is a bridge. But for many of us, that bridge was never built. Or it was built with fragile, conditional materials. If you grew up in a home where resources, whether emotional, financial, or temporal, were scarce, you learned a very different lesson. You may have had parents who were perpetually stressed, overwhelmed by their own trauma, or perhaps physically or emotionally absent. In these environments, a child's needs are often framed as extras or interruptions. Think back to those moments when you were small. Perhaps you needed help with a school project, or you were feeling sad and needed a hug. If your request was met with a heavy sigh, a look of exhaustion, or a comment about how everyone wants something from me today, your young brain made a survival-based calculation. You realized that your needs caused pain or stress to the people you relied on for survival. To protect your connection to your caregivers, you began to minimize yourself. You learned that the good version of you was the one who needed nothing, the one who was invisible, the one who could handle it all alone. This is where the seeds of hyperindependence are sown. It isn't a personality trait, it's a trauma response. It is a protective shell grown over a wound of neglect. When you refuse help today, you aren't being stubborn. You're listening to a very old, very quiet part of yourself that believes needing someone else is dangerous. This feeling of danger is often linked to what we call transactional love. In some families, help is never truly free. It comes with strings attached, sometimes visible, sometimes invisible. Perhaps you had a parent who would do things for you, but they would remind you of it for weeks. Or they would use their help as a weapon during an argument, saying, "After everything I've done for you, how could you be so ungrateful?" In this dynamic, help isn't an act of love. It's a loan with a high interest rate. It's a way of gaining leverage or control. When you grow up in this atmosphere, your nervous system begins to associate receiving with losing your autonomy. You learn to scan every act of kindness for the hidden hook. When someone offers you help now, as an adult, your brain doesn't see a gift. It sees a potential debt that could be used against you later. You feel guilty because, in your internal map of the world, receiving something means you now owe a part of your soul to the giver. This is why the guilt feels so heavy. It is the weight of an anticipated obligation. It is the fear that by saying yes to a helping hand, you're giving someone else the power to hurt you, disappoint you, or demand something from you that you aren't prepared to give. You would rather struggle in isolation, exhausted and burnt out, than risk the vulnerability of being beholden to another person. There is also the good child archetype to consider, the one who was praised for being low maintenance. If you were the child who never caused any trouble, or who was so mature for your age, you likely derived your entire sense of self-worth from your ability to be self-sufficient. You became the pillar for others, perhaps even parentifying yourself and taking care of your own parents' emotional needs. In this role, your value was tied to what you could do for others, never what others could do for you. The moment you step out of that role and allow yourself to be helped, you experience a profound crisis of identity. If you aren't the one holding everything together, then who are you? If you are the one receiving, you feel as though you have failed your primary mission. The guilt you feel is actually a form of grief. Grief for the perfect, self-contained version of yourself that you feel you must maintain to be worthy of love. This internalized pressure creates a paradox. Deep down, you may feel a profound sense of loneliness. You might even feel resentful that no one seems to notice how much you're struggling. But the moment someone does notice, and the moment they reach out to lighten the load, you pull away. You are trapped in a cycle where you crave the very thing that terrifies you most. The guilt is a signal that your boundaries are being crossed, not by the other person, but by your own history. Your past is screaming that you are too much, that your needs are exhausting, and that you are weak for not being able to do it all on your own. It's a relentless inner critic that uses guilt as a tool to keep you in the safe zone of isolation. We must also look at how this guilt manifests in our bodies. It isn't just a thought. It's a physical rejection. You might notice that when someone tries to help you, you physically stiffen. Your breath becomes shallow. You might feel a sudden urge to pay it back immediately. If someone buys you dinner, you feel an urgent, almost frantic need to pay for the next 3 meals just to clear the ledger. This compulsive reciprocity is a way of trying to get back to the safety of zero. You can't breathe as long as the ledger is unbalanced. You live in a state of constant monitoring, checking to see if you've taken more than you've given, because you believe that the moment you become a net taker in a relationship, you become disposable. You believe that people only stay because of what you provide, not because of who you are. Therefore, receiving help feels like a threat to the very stability of your relationships. You think, if I let them see I'm struggling, they'll realize I'm a burden and they'll leave. This belief system is often reinforced by a phenomenon called emotional neglect. Unlike physical abuse, which is about what happened to you, emotional neglect is about what didn't happen. It's the absence of validation, the absence of being seen, and the absence of support during critical times of development. If no one was there to help you process big emotions when you were 5, 10, or 15, your brain decided that help wasn't an available resource in the world. When a resource isn't available, you stop looking for it. And when it's suddenly offered later in life, it feels foreign, suspicious, and even wrong. It's like being asked to use a tool you've never seen before. You don't know how to hold it, and you're afraid you'll break it, or that it will break you. The tragedy of this childhood trauma is that it robs you of the beauty of interdependence. It forces you to live as an island, thinking that strength is found in solitude. But human beings are biological social creatures. We are wired to co-regulate, to share burdens, and to find safety in the tribe. When trauma severs that wire, we are left with a nervous system that is perpetually on guard, viewing the most beautiful aspect of humanity, our ability to care for one another, as a trap. You may find yourself looking at others who receive help easily and feeling a mix of envy and judgment. You might think, how can they be so selfish? How can they just sit there while someone else works? This judgment is often a reflection of the harshness you apply to yourself. You cannot allow others to be needy because you have spent a lifetime ruthlessly suppressing your own neediness. To you, need is a dirty word. It's a sign of failure. It's the crack in the armor that allows the world to see you are human. And for someone who grew up needing to be a little soldier or a perfect student or a quiet observer, being human feels like a liability. The guilt you feel when receiving help is actually a guardian. It is trying to protect you from the pain of being shamed for your needs, just like you were in the past. It's trying to keep you from the crushing weight of a debt you don't think you can pay. But this guardian is now standing in the way of your healing. It is keeping you locked in a room of your own making, where you are safe from obligation, but dying of exhaustion. Understanding this is the first step in shifting the narrative. It's about recognizing that the ledger you keep in your head isn't real. It was a tool for survival in a dysfunctional home, but it is a prison in a healthy adult life. Most people who offer help do so because it makes them feel good to support someone they care about. They aren't looking for a way to control you. They are looking for a way to connect with you. When you refuse that help, you aren't just protecting yourself. You are also, unintentionally, pushing away their attempt at connection. You are saying no to the bridge they are trying to build. And while that no feels safe, it also feels incredibly lonely. This deep-seated guilt often masks an even deeper fear. The fear of being seen in your most vulnerable state. To receive help, you have to admit that you aren't fine. You have to admit that you have limits. You have to admit that, for a moment, you are not the one in control. And for someone whose childhood safety depended on being in control and being together, that admission feels like a betrayal of the self. It feels like an invitation for disaster. If you spent your formative years as the reliable one, the child who didn't cause trouble, the one who took care of their younger siblings, or the one who acted as an emotional anchor for a volatile parent, then your entire identity is built on the foundation of being the provider, never the recipient. In psychology, we often look at this through the lens of parentification. This occurs when the traditional roles are flipped, and a child is forced to take on adult responsibilities, either practically or emotionally. When you are parentified, you learn very early on that your needs are secondary to the stability of the household. You learn that love is something you earn by being useful, by anticipating others' needs, and by minimizing your own existence so as not to add weight to an already sinking ship. When this child grows up, they carry an invisible ledger in their mind. In this ledger, every act of kindness received is recorded not as a gift, but as a debt. If someone offers to help you move, or lends you money, or even just offers a sincere word of comfort during a difficult week, the internal alarm bells start ringing. Your brain doesn't see a friend, it sees a creditor. You immediately begin calculating how and when you will pay them back, often with interest. This is because, in your past, help was never free. It was likely transactional, used as a bargaining chip, or held over your head during an argument. "After everything I've done for you" is a phrase that rings through the hallways of many traumatized childhoods, turning every gesture of care into a weapon of guilt. This creates a phenomenon known as hyperindependence. It's often mistaken for a personality trait, a sign of a strong, self-sufficient person. But look closer, and you'll see it's actually a sophisticated defense mechanism. It's a survival strategy designed to ensure that you are never again in a position where someone can hold their kindness over you. By never needing anything, you ensure that no one can ever let you down, and more importantly, no one can ever claim ownership over you. But there is a profound loneliness in this tower of self-sufficiency. When you refuse help, you aren't just protecting yourself from potential debt. You are also walling yourself off from genuine human connection. True intimacy requires a certain level of interdependence. It requires the ebb and flow of giving and receiving. When you block the receiving part of that flow, the relationship becomes lopsided. You become a permanent caregiver, and the people around you become permanent consumers of your energy. You might find yourself surrounded by people, yet feeling utterly alone because no one truly knows your struggles, mainly because you've never allowed them to see the cracks in your armor. The guilt you feel when someone tries to step into those cracks is actually a form of toxic shame. It's the deep-seated belief that you are inherently too much, or that your needs are a burden that will eventually drive people away. You believe that if you let someone help you, they will eventually realize how much work you really are and leave. So you push the help away to preempt the abandonment. You'd rather do it alone and be exhausted than do it together and be vulnerable. This guilt also manifests physically. Think about the last time someone tried to do something truly selfless for you. Did your chest tighten? Did you feel a sudden urge to change the subject or deflect the attention? Did you immediately start listing reasons why you didn't really need it? This is your nervous system reacting to a perceived threat. To your body, being helped feels like being hunted, because in your history, vulnerability was the precursor to pain. We have to look at the inner critic that governs these moments. This critic is often a composite of the voices of those who failed us. It's the voice that says, "You should be able to handle this yourself," or "Don't be so weak." This critic views the acceptance of help as a moral failing. It equates needing support with being lazy or incapable. It's a harsh, uncompromising internal judge that doesn't allow for the reality of being a limited, finite human being. This leads to a state of constant over-functioning. You over-prepare, overwork, and overgive, all to stay one step ahead of the feeling of inadequacy. But the tragedy of over-functioning is that it eventually leads to a catastrophic burnout. And when that burnout inevitably happens, the very thing you fear most, the need for help, becomes an unavoidable reality. This creates a vicious cycle. The more you try to avoid needing others, the more you deplete yourself, until you are forced into a state of total collapse where you have no choice but to rely on someone else. And in that moment of collapse, the guilt isn't just a whisper, it's a shattering roar. It is the sound of 1,000 childhood warnings coming true at once. When you are forced to accept help because your body or mind can no longer carry the weight alone, the guilt feels like a sentence for a crime you didn't mean to commit. In your mind, you have broken the one rule that kept you safe. Don't be a problem. You feel as though you've failed at the very art of existing, and that by needing someone, you have handed them a weapon they will eventually use against you. This leads us to one of the most painful aspects of this trauma: the perception of help as a high-interest loan. For many who grew up in environments where care was conditional or scarce, help was never a gift. It was an investment or a bargaining chip. Perhaps your parents reminded you constantly of how much they sacrificed for you. Or maybe they used their support as a way to control your choices later on. When love is transactional, you learn to view every act of kindness as a debt recorded in an invisible ledger. You aren't just receiving a favor, you are signing a contract you haven't read and don't know if you can fulfill. This is why, when someone offers you a hand today, you don't see a gesture of love. You see a bill you can't afford to pay. You start calculating the cost immediately. If they do this for me, what will they expect in return? Will they bring this up during our next argument? Am I now obligated to be perfect to make up for this moment of weakness? This mental exhaustion is often worse than the original problem you needed help with. It is an exhausting way to live, constantly auditing your relationships for potential deficits. But we must look closer at why this feels so dangerous. To receive is to be seen in your incompleteness. For the child who had to be the strong one, the quiet one, or the easy one, being seen in a state of need feels like being exposed. It is a loss of the armor you've spent decades forging. If you are no longer the one who has it all together, then who are you? There is a profound identity crisis that occurs when we step out of the role of the helper and into the role of the helped. You might feel that your value in the lives of others is tied solely to your utility. If you aren't useful, you fear you are disposable. To heal from this, we have to dismantle the architecture of this solitude. We have to begin by redefining what it means to be a burden. The truth is, in a healthy, loving connection, the weight is shared not because one person is weak, but because the relationship itself is the container for the weight. When you allow someone to help you, you aren't just taking something from them. You are giving them something deeply precious: trust. You are inviting them into your inner world, showing them your humanity, and allowing them the opportunity to express their love in a tangible way. Think of it this way. How do you feel when you help someone you care about? Usually, you feel a sense of purpose, warmth, and deeper connection. You don't view them as a burden. You view them as someone you value enough to support. By refusing to let others help you, you are inadvertently denying them that same experience of connection. You're keeping them at arm's length, locked out of the parts of your life where they could actually make a difference. The journey toward overcoming this guilt involves a process of reparenting that inner part of you that still believes it's an inconvenience. It requires a gentle, clinical humanistic approach to your own shame. When that feeling of, "I shouldn't need this," arises, try to meet it with the same empathy you would offer a dear friend. Validate that your guilt is a survival mechanism that is simply out of date. It was a tool that protected you in a past environment where needing things was risky. But in your present life, it is a barrier to the very intimacy you crave. Practice the art of the small ask. You don't have to start by asking for a life-changing favor. Start by asking for a glass of water, or for someone to hold the door, or for 5 minutes of their time to vent about a bad day. Observe the sky didn't fall. Observe that the person helping you didn't suddenly grow resentful or use it against you. These small repetitions begin to rewire the nervous system, teaching it that vulnerability does not always equal catastrophe. You must also learn to forgive yourself for being human. Humanity is, by definition, a state of interdependence. No one, not the most successful, the most stoic, or the most independent person on earth, gets through this life without the support of others. The self-made individual is a myth that ignores the countless hands that paved the roads we walk on, and the minds that created the tools we use. Needing help isn't a failure of character, it is a fundamental truth of our species. As you move forward, remember that your worth is not a fluctuating currency based on how little you can bother people. Your worth is inherent. It is fixed. It is there when you are helping others, and it is there when you are the one being held. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to not have the answers. You are allowed to let someone else carry the lamp for a while, so you can rest your eyes. The guilt may not disappear overnight. It is a long-standing inhabitant of your mind, and it will likely linger at the edges of your most vulnerable moments, but you can change your relationship to it. You can see the guilt and say, "I see you. I know you're trying to protect me from being a burden, but I am safe now. I am allowed to receive." In the end, healing from this form of childhood trauma isn't about becoming perfectly independent. It's about becoming perfectly connected. It's about realizing that the most beautiful thing we can offer one another is not our strength, but our presence. And that presence is most profound when we are brave enough to say, "I need you." By letting go of the guilt, you aren't becoming a burden. You are finally becoming whole. You are allowing yourself to be loved, not for what you can do, but for exactly who you are, even in your moments of greatest need. This is the path to a life where help is no longer a source of shame, but a bridge to the deep, resonant connection you have always deserved.